In a heartbeat, James Baldwin flung the door wide, inviting us into an unforgettable journey. One where the black legends you once idolized set stages ablaze, ruled the box office, and shook the worlds of music and cinema to their core. Yet, they carried to their graves a truth they never dared to confess. These were voices that melted millions, eyes that could make a room fall silent, icons who shattered racial barriers and rewrote history. But behind the curtain, they lived in two worlds, one for the public, and one only they could see. Each of these 15 figures walked a backstage lined with both gold and thorns. Hidden loves. The desperate longing to live freely. Choices that cost them pieces of their souls. You think you know their stories? Think again, because the truth may just leave you breathless. So watch closely, and don't turn away until the very last name. I promise, you won't be ready for what you find. Bayard Rustin. On August 28, 1963, more than 250,000 people poured into Washington, D.C., their voices and hopes converging on the National Mall. All eyes were on Martin Luther King Jr., whose "I Have a Dream" speech would echo through history. But behind the stage, where the roar of the crowd faded into the low hum of generators and the quick shuffle of organizers' feet, stood a tall, slender man with silver-streaked hair, bright, watchful eyes, and round glasses. He scanned every detail like a maestro conducting a vast human symphony. His name was Bayard Rustin. Most Americans had never heard of him, yet he was the chief architect of the greatest march of the 20th century. Born in 1912 in Westchester, Pennsylvania, Rustin grew up in a Quaker household grounded in the values of equality and nonviolence. By his 20s, he had already become a relentless activist, fighting for African American rights, opposing war, and championing workers. He wasn't just a brilliant strategist, he also possessed a warm, resonant baritone that once graced Broadway stages. But there was another truth Rustin carried, one he could not safely reveal. He was a gay man in an era when homosexuality was still considered a sin, and in many states, a crime. In the 1950s, he was arrested for engaging in a same-sex relationship, a scar his enemies, both in the press and at times within the civil rights movement, would use against him. Some leaders even pushed him out of key roles, fearing his sexuality would be used to discredit their cause. Still, Rustin refused to walk away. Instead, he worked in the shadows, allowing others to stand in the spotlight while he engineered history from behind the curtain. For the 1963 March on Washington, he built the blueprint, coordinating hundreds of buses, scheduling speakers, and ensuring security. The result was a gathering so impeccably organized that even Washington's police called it one of the largest and most peaceful demonstrations they had ever seen. In his private life, Rustin stood just as firmly in love. From 1977 onward, he shared his life with Walter Nagel. When marriage was not an option, Rustin made a bold and unconventional choice, legally adopting Walter in 1982 to ensure their rights as a family. On August 24, 1987, Bayard Rustin passed away at 75, after suffering a perforated appendix. His death went largely unnoticed by the public he had served so profoundly. It wasn't until 2013 that the United States finally gave him the recognition he deserved, posthumously awarding him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It was a tribute long overdue, honoring the man who had quietly shaped one of the most important moments in American history. Willie Ninja. If Bayard Rustin was the quiet conductor of a symphony for justice, then Willie Ninja was the dancer who turned movement into a manifesto. From shadowy rooms in New York's underground to the blazing runways of Paris and Milan, he didn't just dance to a beat. He transformed every step into a declaration: the right to be seen, the right to be free, the undeniable beauty of self-expression. Born in 1961 in Queens, New York, Willie came of age in a city alive with rhythm and rebellion. In hidden sanctuaries known as ballrooms, safe havens built by Black and Latin queer communities, he found not only a stage but a family. These weren't just contests, they were worlds where outcasts became icons, where the marginalized could reign. And in this world, Willie rose like lightning. His weapon? Voguing, a fierce, angular, razor-sharp dance inspired by the fashion poses of Vogue magazine, each movement as precise as it was defiant. By the time the 1990 documentary Paris is Burning lit up screens, Willie Ninja had already become a legend. With a sleek bun, eyes like blades, and a body that carved through air as if sculpting truth itself, he became the face of voguing to the world. Fashion titans took notice. Jean-Paul Gaultier brought him in to teach models how to command the runway, Thierry Mugler drew on his artistry for his bold designs, and Madonna carried voguing into the mainstream with her MTV phenomenon Vogue. But Willie never let the spotlight blind him to where he came from, or who he was. He was openly gay, unapologetically gender-defying, and deeply committed to his community. At the height of the AIDS crisis, when fear and stigma were as deadly as the virus itself, Willie used his platform to educate, to push for testing, to speak life where others only whispered about death. On the dance floor, he was the mother of the House of Ninja, protecting, mentoring, and lifting up the next generation. Off stage, he was a bridge between underground culture and the mainstream stage, proving that the two were never truly separate. On September 2, 2006, Willie Ninja died at just 45, his heart failing from AIDS-related complications. But death could not silence him. Every spin, every snap, every pose on today's ballroom floors carries his imprint, proof that dance can be resistance, that art can outlive the artist, and that sometimes the most powerful revolutions are written not in speeches, but in movement. As the ballroom lights fade to a soft glow, the stage is claimed by another visionary, Alvin Ailey, the modern dance master who wove his most guarded truths into every movement. Born in 1931 in the small town of Rogers, Texas, Ailey came of age in an America gripped by deep racial segregation. His childhood was a restless journey, marked by constant moves with his mother in search of work. Those years left him with a profound sense of loneliness, a fragile security, and an aching desire for a place to truly belong. Everything changed in Los Angeles when Ailey met artist Lester Horton, the man who opened the door to modern dance. Here, Ailey found a language that needed no words, fluid, powerful, and layered with meaning. Through movement, he could tell his story, his people's story, and the story of the human spirit. In 1958, Ailey founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York City. Within a few short years, it became a cultural beacon, carrying the faith, pain, and hope of African American communities to Broadway and beyond. His 1960 masterpiece Revelations, performed more than 4,000 times, remains a soaring tribute to the spiritual resilience of Black America. But behind the bright lights, Ailey lived with a secret. He was a gay man at a time when coming out could end a career overnight. Instead of speaking openly, he let his choreography whisper it. Moments of tenderness between male dancers, subtle hand touches rich with longing, and a constant, quiet tension between love, faith, and societal judgment. His life was also shaped by bipolar disorder, pulling him between seasons of explosive creativity and shadows of deep depression. When the AIDS epidemic ravaged the arts in the 1980s, Ailey was not spared. In 1989, at just 58, he died of AIDS-related complications. Out of love and protection for his mother, he asked doctors to list the cause as a blood disease, sparing her the cruelty of public stigma. Today, his legacy endures in every step of his namesake company. Each touring season offers the world a reminder that what cannot be spoken can still be felt, through the body, through music, and through the unflinching gaze of dancers who carry forward his vision. Alvin Ailey proved that art is more than performance. It is memory, identity, and truth set in motion. As the curtain falls on one chapter, the spotlight shifts to another Hollywood figure, Howard Rollins, a man whose secret was much like the last, but whose life took far crueler turns. Howard Ellsworth Rollins Jr., born in 1950 in Baltimore, Maryland, stepped into acting through the theater before bursting onto the big screen in 1981 as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in Ragtime. That performance didn't just impress, it earned him both Oscar and Golden Globe nominations, setting him on what looked like an unstoppable rise. Audiences later came to know and admire him as the cool, razor-sharp detective Virgil Tibbs in the TV series In the Heat of the Night. But behind the charm and sophistication was a truth Rollins could never risk revealing: he was gay. In the Hollywood of the 1980s and 1990s, for a black leading man often cast in strong romantic roles, coming out wasn't just risky, it was career suicide. Rollins knew it. So he kept silent, locking away the deepest part of himself while the pressure of the industry, and the burden of that secrecy, slowly ate away at him. The cracks began to show. He turned to drugs and alcohol, leading to arrests, rehab stints, and the eventual loss of his role on In the Heat of the Night, one of the few steady anchors in his career. One by one, major opportunities slipped through his fingers, leaving a void no role could fill. By the mid-1990s, Rollins was battling an enemy even more ruthless than Hollywood prejudice: AIDS-related lymphoma. In an era when the disease carried a cruel stigma, especially for gay men, he chose silence once again, keeping his illness private to shield himself from the inevitable judgment. On December 8, 1996, Howard Rollins died at just 46 years old. Only in death did friends and colleagues speak openly about the man they truly knew, a brilliant, sensitive artist who had been forced to hide part of his soul from the world. His life remains a stark reminder of the human cost of prejudice in an industry that claimed to celebrate truth, yet punished those who dared to live it. Ethel Waters. After the quiet shadows surrounding Howard Rollins in modern Hollywood, our story rewinds to the early 20th century. To a black woman whose voice could hush a room and whose presence commanded the stage, yet who guarded a private truth like a hidden jewel. That woman was Ethel Waters. Born in 1896 in Chester, Pennsylvania, Ethel's childhood was marked by poverty, instability, and constant uprooting. She learned early how to survive, moving from odd job to odd job, carrying with her a grit that would one day shape her into a legend. From smoky backroom clubs to the brightest marquees, her rich, velvety alto captured hearts. At a time when black performers were hemmed in by racism's tight walls, she shattered barriers, becoming a Broadway sensation, a Hollywood actress, and the first African-American singer ever broadcast on NBC radio. But away from the spotlight, whispers followed her. In the 1920s, she formed an unusually close bond with dancer Ethel Williams. They shared a home, appeared arm-in-arm at events, and were fondly dubbed the two Ethels by friends. In an era when a black woman publicly acknowledging a same-sex relationship was unthinkable, their connection lived only in coded glances and quiet moments. Though Waters married men 3 times, each union was brief, fueling speculation that these relationships were a shield from public scrutiny. For many who knew her, it was Williams, not any husband, who left the deepest imprint on her heart. In her later years, Waters found a new stage in the world of gospel, partnering with evangelist Billy Graham and pouring her soul into songs of faith. She never spoke publicly about her identity, perhaps out of personal choice, perhaps to preserve her image within the conservative Christian community she now embraced. Even in silence, Ethel Waters remains a quiet icon for the LGBTQ+ community, a reminder of the courage it takes to love authentically when the world insists you hide. Her story, like her voice, lingers long after the final note. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross was born in 1951 in the heart of New York City, into a home where music wasn't just background noise, it was the family's lifeblood. From an early age, Luther's gift was undeniable. Before the world knew his name, his voice was already gracing the records of legends like David Bowie, Diana Ross, and Roberta Flack. But by the early 1980s, the man behind those velvet harmonies stepped into the spotlight on his own. From the joyful pulse of Never Too Much in 1981 to the timeless romance of Here and Now in 1989, and the tear-stained beauty of Dance with My Father in 2003, Luther reigned as the undisputed king of R&B ballads. 8 Grammy Awards. Over 40 million albums sold. His voice became the soundtrack to countless love stories, yet one question always lingered in the minds of his fans: who was Luther really singing to? He never publicly addressed his sexuality. But after his passing, his closest friend, Patti LaBelle, confirmed what many had quietly suspected: Luther was gay. Patti revealed that he kept this truth private, not from shame, but from 2 deep fears: the heartbreak his loyal female fans might feel, and the pain it could cause his beloved mother if the world turned cruel. So, Luther let the songs do the talking. On stage, he was a master storyteller of love and longing. Off stage, he gracefully sidestepped the questions, protecting the sanctity of his music and his family. Behind his warm smile and kind eyes, there was a quiet solitude, a man who gave the world his voice, but rarely his heart. In 2003, tragedy struck when Luther suffered a massive stroke. He never fully recovered, and on July 1, 2005, at just 54 years old, the world lost one of its greatest voices. Only after his death did the fuller picture emerge, not just of a legendary artist, but of a man who chose silence over self-revelation, all in the name of love and legacy. 2 decades later, the 2025 documentary Luther, Never Too Much peeled back the curtain with grace and respect. It didn't chase scandal. Instead, it wove a tender portrait of his career, his devotion to music, and the hidden corners of a heart that longed for love, but chose to keep the melody private. Richard Bruce Nugent. If Luther Vandross chose silence to shield his career and protect those he loved, Richard Bruce Nugent walked a very different road. From the start, he lived unapologetically, even in an era when being open about who you were could ruin your life. Nugent wasn't just an artist of the Harlem Renaissance, he was living proof of the power of authenticity in the middle of a storm. Born in 1906 in Washington, D.C., Nugent revealed his artistic gifts early: writing, painting, reciting poetry, even acting. When he moved to Harlem, the beating heart of African American culture in the 1920s, he threw himself into the thriving community of young black creatives, helping to ignite a renaissance in art, literature, and music. He formed friendships with towering figures like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston. But unlike many of his peers, Nugent never hid his sexuality. In 1926, he published the short story Smoke, Lilies and Jade and Fire magazine, a work that stunned the literary world. Written in a lyrical, dreamlike style, it told of a romantic and physical relationship between a young black man and another man named Beauty. It was one of the first published works by a black author to speak openly about male same-sex love, shattering the taboos of its time. The backlash was swift. Publishers distanced themselves, and even some of his friends hesitated to be seen with him for fear of guilt by association in a deeply prejudiced era. But Nugent didn't retreat. He kept writing, painting, and living on his own terms. He dressed in flamboyant bohemian style, strolled into art parties with unshakable confidence, and let judgment roll off him like rain. Though his works never achieved mainstream circulation in his lifetime, their influence would echo for decades. He proved that art could be more than beauty. It could be defiance, it could be truth, it could be a lifeline for those who felt unseen. In a 1983 interview, Nugent explained his mission with striking clarity. "I wanted to write about a different kind of loneliness, not because of my color, but because of my love." When he died in 1987, his body of work was modest in size but monumental in spirit. Today, scholars and LGBTQ+ activists hail Richard Bruce Nugent as a fearless pioneer. A man whose courage and uncompromising creativity lit the way for generations to come. Paul Winfield. After the bold openness of Richard Bruce Nugent, we meet another Hollywood figure. A man whose brilliance lit up the screen, yet whose personal truth was guarded like a script that never made it past the table read. Paul Winfield's life stands as a quiet testament to a love that endured for decades, even when it had to remain invisible. Born in Los Angeles in 1939, Winfield began his artistic journey on the stage before moving seamlessly into television and film. In 1972, he delivered a career-defining performance in Sounder, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, a rare and groundbreaking achievement for a black actor at the time. His range was extraordinary, portraying everyone from noble heroes to morally complex antagonists, captivating audiences with a commanding presence. What the public never knew was that behind the scenes, Winfield shared nearly 30 years of his life with architect Charles Gillen Jr. They met at the height of Winfield's career, becoming each other's anchor in a world where being openly in a same-sex relationship, especially as a prominent black actor, could mean professional exile. They chose to love in silence, cherishing their private moments far from the camera's lens. Actress Cicely Tyson, a close friend, even offered Winfield her home during filming to shield him from gossip that could have jeopardized his career. In March 2002, Gillen passed away, leaving a void that nothing could fill. Just 2 years later, on March 7, 2004, Winfield himself died of a heart attack at 64. As he wished, he was laid to rest beside his partner at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles, a quiet but eternal monument to the life and love they protected. Paul Winfield left behind not only a diverse and celebrated body of work but also the image of a calm, gifted, and steadfast man. His story forms a poignant counterpoint to Nugent's. One lived in the light, the other in deliberate shadow. Yet both prove that living true to oneself takes many forms, and love's strength endures, whether spoken aloud or kept as a sacred secret. From Paul Winfield's guarded love story, we turn to another tale, one where music, style, and attitude became a language of self-expression, even without a public confession. This is Jermaine Stewart, the vibrant pop voice who lit up the 1980s with his infectious melodies and unshakable optimism. Born in 1957 in Columbus, Ohio, Stewart grew up in a home where music was a daily heartbeat. He started as a dancer and background singer for major acts, his stage presence impossible to ignore, before stepping into his own spotlight with a 1986 smash "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off." More than just a chart-topping hit that soared into the Billboard Top 5, it carried a message that was both joyful and radical for its time, reminding listeners that love and connection didn't have to be tied to sex. In the shadow of the AIDS crisis, that message became a quiet act of courage. But courage came at a cost. In the 1980s, projecting a different kind of image, especially as a black artist in the pop world, meant pushing against industry walls. Record labels hesitated, producers pulled back, and Stewart had to fight twice as hard just to keep his place. By the 1990s, shifting music trends and declining health slowly pushed him from the spotlight. Privately, Stewart battled liver cancer brought on by AIDS. On March 17, 1997, at just 39 years old, he passed away quietly, his death barely acknowledged in the press. The stigma surrounding AIDS at the time meant many chose silence instead of celebrating the life of a man who had dared to be different. Today, we don't have to take our clothes off lives on. Not just as an irresistible slice of 80s pop, but as a reminder of an artist who, in a world of limits, chose to live and create on his own terms. From the bright, kaleidoscopic pop world of Jermaine Stewart, we now descend into the deep, soulful currents of Donny Hathaway. A man whose voice could light up the darkest room, yet who carried shadows he never fully revealed. Born in 1945 in Chicago, Illinois, Hathaway was raised in a family where music was as natural as breathing. By the time he was a boy, he was singing and playing piano in church, his gift impossible to miss. After graduating from Howard University's prestigious School of Music, he cut his teeth as a producer and session musician before stepping into the spotlight himself. In the 1970s, he became one of soul music's most transcendent voices, delivering timeless treasures like A Song for You, This Christmas, and unforgettable duets with Roberta Flack. Where is the Love and The Closer I Get to You? These songs didn't just top charts, They became part of the soundtrack to people's lives. But behind that warm, velvety voice lay a life wrapped in secrecy. Whispers circulated that Hathaway might have been bisexual, a truth he never confirmed. In the climate of the 1970s, especially for a black male artist, such a revelation could have shattered his career. So he remained silent, guarding his private life from the glare of fame. Yet his greatest struggle was not with public perception, but with his own mind. Hathaway battled paranoid schizophrenia, an illness that haunted him with hallucinations and relentless fears that someone was out to harm him. The disease forced him into repeated hospital stays and made writing, performing, and even maintaining close relationships a painful challenge. Friends recalled how he could pour his entire soul into a performance, only to sink into an unreachable darkness as soon as the music stopped. On January 13, 1979, tragedy struck. Donny Hathaway was found dead after falling from the 15th floor window of New York's Essex House Hotel. He was only 33 years old. Police ruled it a suicide, but for those who loved him, it felt like the world had lost a brilliance that had only begun to shine. Years later, his story was brought to the stage, confronting his battles with mental illness, and gently hinting at the truths he could never voice aloud. The play painted a portrait of a man of boundless passion, torn between the music he loved and the secrets he carried. Donny Hathaway left behind not just melodies, but the haunting reminder of how heavy the unspoken can become. Next, we come to Little Richard, a man who wasn't just a musician, but a hurricane of sound, color, and unapologetic flair. He didn't simply help shape modern popular music, he set it ablaze. Yet, behind the glitter and the pounding piano keys, he wrestled with a lifelong conflict between who he truly was and the strict religious standards he clung to. Born Richard Wayne Penniman in 1932 in Macon, Georgia, he grew up in a deeply conservative Christian home. From the moment his teenage voice soared into its high, piercing register, paired with a theatrical performance style and gentle mannerisms, he stood apart. His father refused to accept him. At just 15, Richard was thrown out of the house over suspicions that he was gay, a rejection that left a wound so deep it became both his greatest pain and his fiercest motivation. In the 1950s, Little Richard exploded onto the scene with immortal hits like Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, and Good Golly Miss Molly. In glittering suits, a towering pompadour, heavy makeup, and with energy that could shake the stage itself, he didn't just perform. He redefined what a performance could be. Music historians now call him the architect of rock and roll, a trailblazer who inspired everyone from Elvis Presley to the Beatles. But for all his success, the inner struggle never ceased. He would publicly acknowledge being gay, only to later renounce it, insisting he had turned away from those desires to follow his faith. Time and again, he walked away from music to preach as a minister, only to return to the stage with the same electric fire. These sharp reversals mirrored a man caught between devotion and desire, between the pulpit and the spotlight. In 2012, at 80 years old, Little Richard made one of his most candid admissions, describing himself as omnisexual, attracted to people regardless of gender. For many, it felt like a rare moment when he spoke without self-judgment, more at peace with his own complexity. When Little Richard passed away in 2020 at the age of 87, the world lost a pioneer whose personal conflicts may never have been fully reconciled, but whose legacy is beyond dispute. He proved that an artist can shatter every mold, sonically, visually, and culturally, and leave behind a mark that will never fade. James Baldwin. From the explosive, glittering stages of Little Richard, our journey steps into a quieter arena, one without flashing lights or the roar of electric guitars, but no less electrifying. Here, the instrument is language itself, and James Baldwin wields it like a blade, slicing through lies and exposing truths that society often wished to keep buried. Born in 1924 in Harlem, New York, Baldwin grew up in the shadows of poverty, under the stern hand of a strict stepfather, and in the suffocating grip of racial segregation. Books became his sanctuary, words his lifeline. He came to believe that literature was not merely an art form, it was a weapon, one that could challenge power and shatter silence. Baldwin was one of the few black writers in mid-20th century America to live openly as a gay man. Yet he rejected labels, believing that human identity was far too complex to be confined to categories. Love, he argued, no matter its gender or color, could not be caged by narrow definitions. In 1956, he shook the literary world with Giovanni's Room, a daring novel about the romance between two men in Paris. That the author was black and the lovers in his story were white only deepened the shockwaves. But Baldwin refused to be silenced, saying that if he hadn't written it, he would have betrayed himself. 2 decades later, Just Above My Head fearlessly explored same-sex love between black men, weaving it into a tapestry of faith, injustice, and the strength of community. Always the outsider, a black man in a white-dominated nation, a gay man in a heteronormative world, Baldwin used his vantage point to dissect oppression in all its forms. He could see through the polished veneer of normal society, revealing the raw power structures and the forgotten souls beneath. Beyond the page, Baldwin was a relentless activist. He lectured, debated, and wrote essays that pierced through hypocrisy, speaking on civil rights, war, gender equality, and the American conscience. His voice was both razor-sharp in logic and rich with emotion, inspiring generations to come. James Baldwin passed away in 1987 in the south of France, where he had spent his final years in a rare pocket of peace. Yet his words live on, urgent, unflinching, and timeless. They remind us that truth never expires, and that language in the right hands can shake even the strongest walls. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr., a name that still stirs admiration and intrigue. Born in 1925 in Harlem, New York, he stepped into the spotlight as a young boy, touring the vaudeville circuit with his father and godfather. From the start, his gift was undeniable, a true triple threat who could sing jazz with heart, tap dance with electric precision, and have an audience roaring with laughter in the same evening. His talent earned him a place in the legendary Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and other icons, where he became one of the most versatile entertainers of his generation. Off stage, Davis's personal life often made headlines. He married 3 times, most famously to Swedish actress May Britt, a union that sparked national controversy in 1960, when interracial marriage was still outlawed in many states. Before that, he had been romantically linked to actress Kim Novak, a relationship reportedly cut short by pressure from Hollywood power players and organized crime figures. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled about Davis's possible same-sex relationships, whispers his friends sometimes hinted at, but that he never confirmed. In the show business climate of the time, such an admission could have destroyed the career he had fought so hard to build. A pivotal moment came in 1954, when a near-fatal car accident left him blind in one eye. During his recovery, he embarked on a spiritual search that ultimately led him to convert to Judaism, a bold and deeply personal choice that set him apart as one of the few prominent black entertainers of the era to openly embrace the faith. Sammy Davis Jr. died in 1990 at age 64, after a battle with throat cancer. He left behind not just a legacy of groundbreaking performances, but also a trailblazing example of resilience, talent, and courage in the face of racial and cultural barriers. Parts of his private life remain cloaked in shadow, but the image that endures is of the man who could do it all. The singer, dancer, comic, and actor whose energy lit up every stage he touched. Our journey now takes us to a man who didn't just command the grandest stages of the 20th century. He used them as a battlefield for justice. That man was Harry Belafonte. Born in 1927 in New York City to Jamaican parents, Belafonte split his youth between the bustling streets of America and the sun-soaked shores of the Caribbean. That dual heritage shaped a sound all his own, fusing calypso, folk, and pop into something the world had never heard before. In 1956, his groundbreaking album Calypso made history, becoming the first record in the United States to sell over 1 million copies. Overnight, he was crowned the King of Calypso, introducing Caribbean rhythms to the American mainstream. But Belafonte wasn't just a voice, he was a presence, an Emmy, Tony, and 3-time Grammy winner who broke racial barriers in Hollywood. Refusing to be boxed into stereotypes, he took on leading roles in films like Carmen Jones, 1954, and Island in the Sun, 1957, reshaping how America saw black actors on screen. Off stage, his voice was just as powerful. A close friend and confidant of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Belafonte helped organize and fund pivotal moments in the civil rights movement. For decades, he spoke out against injustice, from apartheid South Africa to humanitarian crises across the globe, proving that celebrity could be a tool for real change. Yet, like many icons, parts of his life remain shrouded in mystery. Whispers in the entertainment industry suggested Belafonte may have led a discreet private life as a gay man. There was no hard proof, and he never addressed the rumors, leaving a lingering air of intrigue that became part of the Belafonte legend. When Harry Belafonte passed away in 2023 at the age of 96, he left behind far more than music. He left a legacy of art that broke barriers, performances that redefined Hollywood, and a lifetime devoted to justice. His life was proof that art and activism can walk hand in hand, and that sometimes, what we choose to keep private can be as telling as what we choose to share with the world. From Harry Belafonte's groundbreaking journey, we close with the enduring image of Ossie Davis, a towering figure of stage and screen who guarded his private life with unwavering care. Born in 1917 in tiny Cogdell, Georgia, Davis grew up in a nation still shackled by segregation. His love for acting carried him to New York, where he became a vibrant force in the Harlem arts movement and carved out a place for himself on the Broadway stage. Over the decades, he proved himself more than an actor. He was also a gifted director, screenwriter, and author, leaving his mark with works like Pearly Victorious and his unforgettable role in Spike Lee's 1989 classic Do the Right Thing. Yet Ossie Davis's greatest legacy reached far beyond the arts. He was a tireless activist, a man who stood shoulder to shoulder with America's most influential civil rights leaders. He delivered the moving eulogy at Malcolm X's funeral and marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., lending his voice and presence to the fight for justice and equality. In the public eye, he embodied intellect, courage, and integrity. In 1948, Davis married the equally talented actress Ruby Dee, forming one of the most celebrated power couples in American theater and film. Their nearly six-decade union was revered not only for its devotion and endurance, but also for their shared commitment to using art as a weapon for change. Still, within theater circles, whispers occasionally arose, quiet rumors suggesting that Davis may have had discreet same-sex relationships. No proof was ever brought forward, and neither he nor Ruby Dee ever addressed the claims. Their silence only added to the aura of mystery surrounding his private life. Perhaps it was nothing more than gossip, or perhaps it was a truth he chose to keep entirely his own. What is certain is that Ossie Davis lived as a man who spoke boldly on the world stage, yet fiercely protected the boundaries of his personal world. On February 4, 2005, he passed away at the age of 87, leaving behind not just iconic roles and groundbreaking plays, but the example of a life lived with principle, passion, and unshakable dignity. If stories like these inspire you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so we can continue exploring the hidden chapters of the art world and the lives of its legendary figures together. The tales you've heard today are drawn from the best information available at the time of production, and history will always have more to reveal. So stay curious, because there are countless more stories of resilience, legacy, and truth waiting to be told.